A bunch of people are rolling in, but we want to get started on time. Are you recording, Laura? Okay, great. Welcome to this wonderful conversation with my dear, dear friend, Garrett Gunderson, New York Times, Wall Street Journal bestselling author of several books, in my opinion, that are game changers for really anyone. And you can learn all about Garrett. There's so much to learn about. He's got an impressive bio, but the thing is, I learned so much about money from Garrett just in being his friend and working on different things with him. And so I hit him up and I said, "Hey, do you think you can come talk to authors? Because what I see him doing with his own authorship career and money is so cool. And I think we don't talk enough about um, what's different for authors when it comes to money in a lot of different areas." And thankfully, he said yes immediately. And I'm grateful for that. Garrett and I met. You talk, I would normally not even say it, Garrett, because I always keep things confidential. But you talk about it so much, so I'm just going to go ahead and share that you were working on a theatrical keynote, and so that's where we met, where I was helping you with that. And then I don't know, we just decided to work together as much as we could, and it was during the pandemic. So uh, I think that's one of the reasons we got so close, don't you think? We were all stuck on Zoom so much and chatting all the time, don't you think, Garrett? You're muted.
I got kicked off for a second. It looks like I had a little technical issue here in the studio. So sorry, I missed what you just said.
I just said, don't you think we got close during the pandemic because we were stuck on Zoom all the time talking for hours?
And I was like in the middle of writing a book and learning how to be a better writer through you. And so I was constantly calling you about these different things like, oh my God, look at this. And what about that? And just, because we were in the middle of writing the theatrical keynote and rehearsing it and the pandemic hit. So I was flying out once a month and getting to see you. And then all of a sudden it was, I guess we'll just see each other on Zoom and chat it up that way.
Yes. I think that you taught me so many different things about the way I think about money that I don't think that I would actually have this place at the lake if I hadn't have met you.
Well, you knew to call me when you weren't sure because you knew I'd be like, hey, quality of life is at the cornerstone of wealth. To me, we have like this notion in finance that's kind of erroneous, which is if you're just patient enough and disciplined enough, and if you'll just lower your lifestyle, one day, someday, when you're too old to enjoy it, you'll finally have a bunch of money. But the problem is we kind of create those habits of never spending and enjoying money. And then all of a sudden we're supposed to flip a switch one day and be at abundant and be like, oh, great, I've got all this money, I'm going to go enjoy it. But it actually becomes, a detriment. And I kind of grew up from a family that just saved every dollar. Like we actually had family members that put cash in coffee cans and put it in the cellar. I remember my grandfather pulling off the Folgers lid and showing me that there was cash just down there. And then my aunt applied for welfare, but they found 550,000 in her savings account. She just had the first dollar she ever earned. And so to me, wealth includes energy, quality of life, purpose. It's all encapsulating, but it's really about your ability to be present and your ability to enjoy life. So I think that retirement kind of gets people to delay life for far too long. And when AJ called and said, "What do you think about me getting this place?" I was like, "Yeah, I think you should go for it."
Yeah.
I don't know, hopefully that's a good influence. I'm just like, "Yeah, I want you to live your
You
best life."
you did actually say you called me for a reason as opposed to other people because you wanted to hear yes.
Exactly. You knew what I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. All right. So today, everybody, I will also want to introduce Laura Stone. She's my dean of students, and she runs the show, and she's going to be handling your technical questions or logistics. Be patient with her. There's a bunch of you here. We have about 140 some people registered. So those of you that are watching the recording after the fact, um, you know that you can always get the chat as well if you need to access information about Garrett or anything that's talked about today. We will be sending out this recording later. I cannot promise it will be today, but it will be at some point early next week, if not today. In case all of you are wondering about that, please do not DM me or Garrett in the chat. We won't be looking at it. If you have questions, put them directly in the chat or message Laura about it. Now that we have that housekeeping out of the way, okay, so I'm going to grill Garrett. Basically, I'm just going to ask him a whole bunch of questions. If you have questions that come up, we will make time for those as well. So if there's something that you want to know, and we don't have to wait till the Q&A. If you have something that you want to ask based on what we just talked about, we can absolutely do that. We can be fluid today. So I want to know from you, in what way do you think authors are uniquely positioned to meet financial goals and grow well? Like, what is it about authorship that gives people an advantage?
I think there are three main assets that can generate cash flow and wealth in a substantial way. One is a business, the other is real estate, and then the most, like, my favorite is intellectual property. The problem with real estate, look, I'm biased against real estate, so I don't have a problem with people investing in it. But when I invested in it, I was always talking to attorneys and bankers and property managers, and no tenant ever gave me a hug or sent me a letter or gave a crap about me. It wasn't this great relationship. Yet I'll be in an airport and someone comes up because I wrote a book, and I get this like connected relationship. But I can also live wherever I want as an author. Where if I have real estate, it's very location dependent, it's property tax dependent. Whereas I'm just paying tax when I'm selling something, and I can get paid royalties, which could be more tax efficient. So I just think the intellectual property is infinitely more scalable than the other models, and you actually get to connect with people. I have a friend named Justin Donald. He wrote The Lifestyle Investor, and he was really wealthy before he wrote the book. But once he wrote the book, he built this deep community of a bunch of people. And I'm like, only a book could do something like that, because someone reads it, they feel like they know you, you can actually connect with them and help them out. And I consider it an asset class that most financial advisors don't see because they don't necessarily get paid on it. So I think that it's uniquely positioned that way.
So I know that you made a lot of different choices. So your first book, um, Killing Sacred Cows,
Yeah.
that was traditionally published, or was that Greenleaf?
So yeah, Greenleaf was a co-publisher. I started it self-published and then ended up going with Greenleaf and getting more distribution and getting it to the New York Times.
Right. Amazing. Love that.
I wrote it in my 20s, which is absurd. I mean, it's like we've rewritten it now a third time because once AJ taught me about writing, I had to rewrite that book. It was just inevitable. We fewer pages, better, more about the reader, the whole process. So thank you so much. And it's a book that's was first out in 2007, and it's still doing really well. Like it's still on, five different Amazon lists in the top 10, 50, or 100 as a book that's that old.
I love that. That's what we want, right? A book that has legs forever. And then you wrote What Would the Rockefellers Do? And that one is still selling like hotcakes, right?
We've sold hundreds of thousands of copies. It's a book that it's kind of wild because I never expected that to be the book. Like it's almost like embarrassing how the book came about. We're a financial firm, and we were referring out business to other financial professionals, and this one guy was like, "Hey, I haven't got any leads from you guys in like 4 months," and our business was growing. I was like, "I don't know what that's about." By the way, if people go to garrettgunderson.com/bookmark, I'll just give them all these books on audiobook for free. And then, if you want to buy them physical copy, if you buy them through that link after you download the audiobook, it's $10 less than if you get them on Amazon because
Like the bundle, right? Do you have a
yeah,
bundle?
yeah, it's Sacred Cows, What Would the Rockefellers Do, and Money Unmasked, which AJ really helped me with. So What Would the Rockefellers Do I rewrote too, by the way, after going through all your stuff, AJ, and made that a better book. Well, it was just gonna be a life insurance book, which how boring is that? And I'm doing this webinar teaching about it, and this woman, Sheila Brandenburg's on the webinar, and she reaches out and she's like, "Hey, I work for the Rockefeller family, and what you're teaching is a lot about similar to what we do." And I was like, wow, everybody sees my hair and they're like, 10 years ago, they're like, what would, I look like Jesus, like Disney Jesus or something. So they're always like, what would Garrett do? So I was like, oh, what would the Rockefellers do? And just that frame and that context. And now I've added this family legacy ring component, and it's amazing to see that what people can download and actually build out this family constitution, which is your values and your philosophies and signposts for future generations. That's pretty exciting work. And that book's killing it. It's still in the top 5 of wealth management and, life insurance and a few other categories. And we usually sell, I don't know, we've sold hundreds of thousands. I haven't crossed the million mark yet, AJ, but that book's is outsold all my other books combined.
You got to be pretty close.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't
I don't
know.
think you know, because I don't think you have a full handle on how many were sold.
Right, because we have, on BookScan, I'm not that close, but when you think about it, like we've pretty much fulfilled. We have our own distribution center, and we fulfill on What Would the Rockefellers Do now for the most part. But then, yeah, so I don't know. It would be nice to get to that point, but yeah, that book has got a lot of legs. I actually, what's unique about that is I license that book to financial advisors. So if they share my values, I write a forward for them. Well, they write the forward, and then all the links point to their website, so they can actually help people implement. And we have a bunch of licensees now, and they're just getting books in people's hands. So I think we'll easily have that book in millions of people's hands soon.
So wait, let me just clarify because I know people are gonna have a question about this. So you license it so that the only thing different about the book, they're not writing a whole new book. It's just a forward that's them,
Yep.
and they can use that for lead gen. And
Yeah,
then
all
what?
the QR codes point to their website instead of mine. We do QR codes. One for a download so they get people in their database, and one to schedule appointments with them.
Oh, that is so cool. And then is it just a digital version or is it also print?
We give them all three because of 11 Labs now. We can give them the audiobook where it sounds like when I say their link that was the original thing that I was saying. So we can replace all the links in the original audiobook with 11 Labs through AI. They get a PDF with the QR codes, and then they get the physical copy, but it's only paperback that they can get, and they get it at cost. But there's three levels that they can come in at: $7,000 and down $200 a month is just the book with the forward with the QR code, but only one QR code, and then they get the audio book and the PDF. If they do a $25,000 program, they actually give them 4 marketing funnels. There's a Killing Sacred Cows that they get to use. There's a tax navigator. So I'm basically teaching them how to market using my content, and I give them every article I've ever written that they can then white label and put their name on, because I've written for Forbes and I've written for HuffPo and Entrepreneur back in the day. So I mean, they're not really great at one to many. That's what I, thanks to AJ, have gotten really good at. They're good at one-on-one. I am not the guy that sits down one-on-one, other than at my cabin twice a month. I have one tonight. People fly in, I get to spend a whole day with them. But ultimately, I think licensing, hopefully that just gives you a different thought process. I would say the reason why What Would the Rockefellers Do and Killing Sacred Cows sold so many books is because my avatar that I was writing to wasn't this person, but the person that buys the books, our advisors buy them in the dozens or hundreds at a time, because it's a great message for them to share with their clients, and it's third-party validation. And so I can write more clearly than they can, and it's something that has a little bit of stature. So that's kind of nice. That's why those books have so much legs.
Okay, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. So you're blowing everybody's minds. I can tell by their faces because I know a lot of these people. So hang on. So you're taking your intellectual property and you're licensing it, and you have a one funnel for one book, but if they want all 4 books,
Yep.
they can, it's 25K. And then do you get anything else after that, or is it just the 25K?
They pay me $1,000 a month at the 25K level because I teach them once a month. I just did a webinar for them yesterday. They get webinar scripts. They get entire marketing systems. And then there's a $50,000 level. I don't make much on the $50,000 level. It's my partner who builds out all the tools for like newsletters and AI editors, and gives them kind of a product suite that they could take my content, merge it with theirs, and be able to produce a lot more content quickly. So yeah, and it's been a process because I had to get the rights from my co-author. He didn't really like that I was doing this, so I had to pay for those rights, which was not fun. And then I also just had to build out the back end and the systems. I'll put the system in here so you guys can just go through it, even though you're not in the financial world. Just as an author, be like, if any of these ideas help you with your books, steal them, use them, do whatever. They're yours. But I think, how do I get books in more people's hands? And how do I make sure people read the books that I get in their hands? And so What Would the Rockefellers Do is a book that has 2,700 organic reviews on Amazon. I didn't ever ask for a review. I didn't have a campaign. It just happened naturally. And it's an insurance book that has 4.6 stars. So like that's pretty cool. And I have to just embrace that the book that I was least excited about is my most popular book of all time. I was like, okay, they choose you, you don't choose it. And now I'm at least, I just rewrote a version of it for my licensees because AJ, there's certain compliance things that are difficult. So I just wrote a version and I put 3 news stories. And by the way, because of you, I just wrote the stories all the way through and then just handed it to an editor, and they're like, these are good. Like I used to give AJ like half-baked stuff, and she's like, hey, read this and then try it again. And then I'd be like, oh, I get it. So yeah, I just want people to think of their book as a huge asset. 10 books is like 10 pieces of real estate for me. And the reason I rewrote What Would the Rockefellers Do in Killing Sacred Cows, not only because AJ helped me be a better writer, but if you have a piece of real estate that's 10 years old, you don't leave it as is. You paint it, you change the carpet, you improve it, even if the structure stays the same. And I got to be honest, it was Taylor Swift. I'm sitting there at her concert, and my sister-in-law's a Swiftie, and she invited me. And I'm all about good performers, and she's an amazing performer, like world class, top notch. And then she announced this album she was coming out with, and I was like, "What's that?" And they're like, "Oh, she just redid her album because of rights." And I was like, "I should just rewrite my books." And so Killing Sacred Cows, when you listen to the audiobook, all of my comedy's in there, which AJ's seen me do comedy on finance after every chapter as well, because I'm just trying to mix it up. I feel like I did a decent job reading those books because I'm a terrible reader compared to a speaker, and I took months of time and I hired coaches to do it. So hopefully it's easy to listen to if you check them out, and hopefully it'll help you like think about finance different and money different, because it's not just like I write them not to just be like, oh yeah, save more money and diversify and all the stuff that you've heard. I write them so that you have a better relationship with money, so that you can heal that relationship with money, so you can enjoy life more now and in the future. You can be prepared for the future, but not sacrifice today. And talking about all these books is fun. I hired AJ. I've made at least the first payment. I have a book coming out. I think it's going to be called Laugh and Grow Rich. I don't know. That's the working title.
Is it now?
Life After Debt was already taken. That was my first title. But it's using humor to teach finance. It's only 20,000 words. I want to make it, graphically illustrate it, because I think that's how we reach the younger generation. I wrote a kid's book with a prolific, children's author. She sold 4 million copies of children's books because I just knew that people would read that all the way through. And the parents could read it and learn without having to admit they didn't know what was in the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like such an easy, sweet, good message. And writing a kid's book, man, she's a magician, because I was awful when I tried to do it on my own. And I gave her my notes, and in 43 minutes, she had something that was pretty amazing.
So I see KP highlighted 10 books is like 10 pieces of real estate. I'm totally grabbing that line too, KP. That's such a good way. I really hope you all take that in as a mindset shift. I saw your face too, Vicky, when you said that. That is a huge mindset shift. We have to stop thinking about it. We have to start thinking about it like that. That is huge. I love that. Incidentally, by the way, I have seen Garrett's comedy. I drove to Philly to see him perform, and you can actually watch it on several streaming channels. Is it American Ream?
Yep.
I got it right. Yeah, you can
Yep.
watch it.
I just put it in the chat for everybody.
Tubi and Roku. I watched it on
Amazon
Tubi.
Prime. Yeah, Amazon
Um,
Prime. I think it's still on Amazon Prime.
if you do watch it, rate it. Okay, just saying.
You can
Um,
tell I've asked for the ratings on the comedy special because it's all 5-star reviews, and nobody loves a comedian 5 stars. Everybody, right? Like everybody's got their preferences, but that's obviously my people just hooking me up with a 5-star review. I like it.
American Ream sounds like something John Briggs would enjoy watching, actually, but just from the title. What is your IRS shirt today, John? What does it say? Dear IRS, what does it say?
Unsubscribe me with unconditional glee. Anyone ever?
Garrett, John's also in Utah, and John has really amazing accounting firm and has probably 5,000 IRS sucks t-shirts that he
Well,
has
then,
created.
John, you and I need to know each other, man. I'd love to talk to you more. So please email me.
And
Okay.
John has a book coming out through McAllowitz, his new simplified imprint, the 3.3 rule, in May of 2026. And John is an alum of my workshop and part of my community. You should definitely meet. There's an email for you, John. So, Garrett, I want to ask you a few questions. I want to make sure that I don't skip these. I know from working with you, as I remember many times we were supposed to be working on money on mass, but I started to say, why don't you know what your Amazon account is? Why aren't you taking this over yourself? And I was, trying to get you to take all this stuff control back. And
Yep.
I think you're very happy that you did.
Yep.
But I wanted to say, what do you wish you had known when you started being an author related to money?
Well, what I liked about it and what I made the mistake with it is, as a first time author, I just didn't know what it took to be an author. right? So I spent $500,000 on killing sacred cows, of which $250,000 didn't need to be spent.
Mm.
I took out a full page ad in Wall Street Journal. I took out a full page ad in the New York Times. I took out the cover of Publishers Weekly. I paid for planned television arts, and I did a bunch of radio spots, which were pretty worthless. Overall, I just didn't know what I didn't know, and I just wanted to get it the best I could. So I just invested so much, not having any way to measure, because it's just like it was a first time for me. And I feel like authorship, there's just so many pieces that you learn by experience, or you have to have someone who is experienced, like AJ, tell you, like, why would you just have someone do your audiobook when you could do it yourself? Yeah, that makes sense. Why wouldn't I do that? And why are you publishing with these guys? You already wrote the book, just publish. Like, a lot of it was, I think that I always thought, oh, if you have a publisher, that's like that, there's prestigious, right? It's almost like pre-YouTube. It was like cool to have a TV show, and then you're like, well, on YouTube you can actually see how many people are watching and communicate with them. So who really cares about the TV show like the old days? I kind of felt like, what I wish I knew about was just that I could have self-published and I could have saved a whole lot of money. And but what I did really right was I had one call to action in killing sacred cows. I called the 401k a hoax in 2007 and said I could outperform it by double or your money back, and got 100 people in the program, and it paid $750,000 to me, which recovered all the capital. And I just didn't realize a book. The mistake I made is I should have put more money in the book afterwards. I put so much energy in getting it to the New York Times. And first off, Greenleaf didn't believe me. I was like, I'm going to get it on New York Times. They're like, how many people in your database? I'm like, 6,000. They're like chuckling behind my back, like, this guy's an idiot. But I was, ambitious idiot. So I basically put out all the efforts that I possibly could every single day, and we did get it there. And then I kind of didn't put the work in afterwards. So if I would have spread the money out and put the work in afterwards, like I've done with what Rockefellers do, it would have been a bigger payoff, even though it has been a decent payoff. And the money that was really worth it was learning how there's different types of readers, because that creates word of mouth, and how to write a better book, and how to have better editors. Like, all that stuff was worth it, because I look at a cover of a book and I just think it's worth putting money into. If you have a great cover, it makes a difference. People do judge a book by its cover. A great title. I think What Would the Rockefellers Do? Killing Sacred Cows they're pretty great titles. Like, I think that helps quite a bit. So it was the best investment I ever made doing Killing Sacred Cows, even though half of it was wasted money. The half that wasn't wasted money was an exponential return. So I think I figured it would be that way, but it absolutely was that way. And I would have just never done real estate had I known what books could do for me. I had 100 properties, which were 100 headaches. And a book is just something that, my wife will say, oh, Garrett's going to get recognized at the airport. She told her friend the other day when at the airport, and I did. And people are just amazing. They're like, dude, I love Killing Sacred. It's like, how cool is that? Like, that they're just nice. And then it's like, this is great. Like, I love it. Like, my wife rolls her eyes and walks by, but my kids like, oh shit, my dad's known a little bit. Like, I get to be cool to my kids again at 17 and 20. I was a badass before they were 10, but then now I have to earn it afterwards.
So, okay, so taking control of your stuff, you mentioned a good cover. What do you wish all authors would do differently, though, about money specifically? Like, what are they doing wrong?
So look, this is the equation. If you want to have prosperity, it comes down to 4 things. Like, whatever it is you want to do, I want you to, like, take the lid off, because most people let 3 factors really limit them. They go, I don't have the time, I don't have the ability, and I don't have the money. If any 3 of those things are an excuse, it's only because you're trying to do too much on your own. When you think you have to do everything by yourself, it will limit your prosperity and your possibility to profit with the book. So take and suspend all of those notions first and go, what do you really want? Like, what would be magnificent? What could you dream up? And then think about that at the highest level. And then go, all right, who's my co-creator? See, I was able to coerce AJ to be my co-creator on Money Unmasked, which made it a much better book. So the co-creator is someone that supports and inspires you, someone that brings you accountability, so that when you don't feel like doing something, you get to the other side with work that's better. When people try to get isolated, they often get hijacked by other projects, other people's ideas, other people's time, other people's things. So, like, find a co-creator that helps you get where you want to go. Number 2, you've got to eliminate escapism. Escapism is, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the ability. I've got to do this first. I've got too much going on. And part of the reason we get into escapism is because we don't want to face higher stakes in the world. And if we raise the stakes of what we're trying to do in the world, there's a different level of commitment. And escapism tells us, well, we're not good enough to do it. We're not worthy enough to do it. We've got to clean the garage first. We've got a health thing we got to take care of. We've got a family member that needs our attention. Anything that would distract us from doing the thing that we actually want to do because it's uncomfortable. So if we raise the stakes, we have to be able to face our escapism because we have the time. If we just did a time audit and said, what no longer serves me or what no longer speaks to who I am on my calendar, and then we get to delegation. Here's where money really comes into play. Delegation is when we start to offload things permanently because we delegate roles to other people, not tasks. Tasks are boomerangs that come back around asking what to do next. A role removes the micromanagement, freeing you up. But you have to master your money good enough to say, I'm going to pay someone else to do something rather than just try to do everything myself. Because a book is a project that goes to the fourth step of collaboration. Collaboration is the key. From the editors to the advanced reader group to the designers to the market, it's a collaborative effort. And part of the reason people don't collaborate is because of their fear of spending money or letting go of money because they're worried that it might not work. And as soon as that doubt enters their mind, they adopt a scarcity mindset, move to isolation, and they actually damage this four-part process of co-creation, elimination, delegation, and collaboration. So what I'm really saying is dream so big that you're so committed to it that you're willing to dedicate your life to it.
Awesome. I saw a lot of money unmasked in there.
It's very money unmasked.
Yeah.
Money unmasked. You could read that word for word probably in that book.
So, a lot of people don't have the money, Garrett, for an assistant and hiring someone like me and instantly, y'all, that he did coerce me. It was definitely a coercion situation. But I mean, a lot of people don't have money for that stuff. We have workshop and we have membership here and those things are also investments, but then there comes, do I need a book launch coordinator? How much money am I going to spend on marketing for this and that? I got to build this and do that. So I know you've said to me before, and this was actually one of the main reasons I wanted you to talk today. You're like, well, I can help people figure out how to fund their book. I'm like, fund their book. Almost like fund a business or So that got my attention. And I really want you to talk about that. What do you mean?
All right, so this is going to be, I'm going to go for a minute here.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Slow me down if I go too fast.
Okay.
The very first thing is, the most popular chapter in Money Unmasked was Cycle of Creation. We weren't even going to keep it, but the advanced reader group was like, this is the chapter.
Yeah.
The concept is, you have an idea. Let's say the book is your idea. It becomes a concept when it's shared and it's more concrete with other people. Then you move it to a framework where things can be offloaded and delegated. And then it's a product, service, or experience. So in this case, it's a book. It's a product. Hey, I pre-sold 22,000 copies of Killing Sacred Cows before the book was written. What I do, I just said, who would value 100 of these copies? Who'd value 250 copies? Who'd value 500 copies? When it came to Money Unmasked, I sold 8,750 copies before the book came out by giving, I gave like 18 speeches or something, or 12 speeches over 3 months. And they just bought the book, and then I gave the speech, and it was half the price of what my normal fee was. And so you can pre-sell. You can find the money. Crowdsourcing is the key. So who values your book where they would buy a lot of copies? And then you can offer them bonuses. I would say, hey, if you buy 500 copies, I'll give a speech. If you buy 250 copies, I have a 10-part mini series that I'm doing that you can invite your clients to, and that I'll interview you on one of them, because it was financial people. Like if you buy 100, then you get, I'm doing an event for everybody that buys 100 books. You just come up with reasons for people to give you money before it's even done. And look, pre-selling is how almost everything works in the world. Crowdsourcing is how most things work. And as long as you have integrity, it could work for you. The Statue of Liberty, it was gifted to the United States from France, but they didn't have like a visitor center. So they got a bunch of people to give money to put their names on bricks and be the first people to attend. And that was a pre-sale. So they didn't have to go get government bonds to do it. I paid for comedy shows. I don't know if they're going to be funny. People pay for Super Bowl tickets. They don't even know who's playing in the Super Bowl. So you can pre-sell these things, but just give people bonuses, whether it's exclusive access to you or things that are just as valuable as the book beforehand, and that they aren't going to get once the book comes out. And that starts to finance everything that you're doing. The pre-sale is absolutely key. I would go through the cycle of creation chapter to consider that. The second thing is there's 4 I's to efficiency in finance. The first I is the IRS. Most authors are tipping the government. If you're an author, you have a business of some type, which means you get major tax advantages, yet most people don't proactively navigate the tax code, and therefore they tip the government. There's so many things that you could be doing, and we have new strategies coming out with the new bill, like everything from research and development that's back in effect, which was gone in the past. Section 199A stays, which is if you have employees, you can take a qualified business deduction up to 20% of your income. You got 280G, which allows you to rent out your home, for your advanced reader group or for clients or whatever it is. 14 days a year, you get a write-off as a business. You don't claim it as personal income. 132J, it's a way to write off any maintenance if you have a gym or a pool or a hot tub or a sauna. Like there's just so many write-offs that people are missing that can be a deduction that helps you fund your book. But, there's the way that people structure loans. There's 3 ways to improve your loans. You can renegotiate interest rates. I mean, if you have credit cards, it's super easy to do. So long as you have good credit, good cash flow reporting. And if you have good collateral, like a paid off car or a home, it's really easy to get lower interest rates. And then just good connections. You can reallocate funds. There's people that have underperforming investments that they could pay off or the high interest rate loans and free up that cash flow. That cash flow can start helping them fund their book. So those are just a couple ideas on the interest side. On the investment side, I know tons of people that have retirement plans. Just forget retirement. Just don't retire. Like retirement's dumb. Stop. If you stop writing when you get more wisdom, you're stingy. Keep being an author. Like I love to write. I'm not going to stop. Like I retired for 3 months. Basically in 2021, when I finished my comedy tour, I was tired. I remember McCallowitz saw me at the airport and I was like, I didn't even talk to him hardly because I just finished my 16 city tour. And he was like, what's up, dude? But anyway, so I just took some time off and I was bored and my wife was tired of me. She's like, you're loud and you're just here all the time. Like, when are you traveling? When are you gonna do something? And it's been really healthy for our relationship that I'm not here 24/7. So basically, if you read this book my friend Derek Coburn wrote called Let's Retire Retirement, he says, what if instead of like trying to save so much money so you could retire at 65, you decided, I'm not really going to retire till 75. Do you know that for most people, they can reduce the amount that they're putting away by like 70%? And what if you just put that money into your book first, grew the platform and your business with your book, then built your investments after? I'm a believer in invest in you first, invest in your assets that you have control and influence over, then build external assets once you've actually established enough wealth. And to me, that's part of the ways that we fund our books. And then, there's just a lot of people that have assets that are sitting around that they're underperforming, they're not doing much. Put it into the book.
You know what McAllowitz is doing to fund a lot of the marketing for the Money Habit? He's got like founding family, like people he's selling to that are listed in the beginning of the book. And so that's something that he pre-sold. So that's before the book is even coming out, and it's a mention in the book that way. That's an example of something else you could try.
There's, like, get creative. Like, don't just follow what everybody else has always done. I mean, I always respect McAllowitz for thinking outside the box that way and coming up with new ideas. I mean, again, everyone has their excuse. I wrote Killing Sacred Cows in my 20s. I didn't have a big database. I just had clients regionally. But I was just like, I'm going to do this. I told someone when I was holding for the first time in front of 85 people, the self-published version with the ugliest cover you've ever seen for a book. I didn't know what I was doing. And I just read the introduction. I got emotional and I just said, I want to take this to the I want to make this a New York Times bestseller. And some guy just came up and said, if you're serious about it, I'll help you find the right people. I was like, okay. So, I mean, part of it is just you speak your life into existence and you speak your book into existence, not just by what you write, but what you talk about and who you talk to it about and what you start to create and the momentum. So just be willing to be bold. Like there's rhetoric and in politics, rhetoric has a bad name because politicians abuse it. But rhetoric is when we speak something into existence And you think about Martin Luther King Jr. just saying, I have a dream. That was rhetoric. He spoke something into existence that didn't exist. And so AJ wrote this line in my play where it was like, all you have to do to win the game is be bold enough to speak your vision into existence. Just be bold enough to speak it into existence. See, if we let the limitation of time, money, and ability limit what we speak, we limit our wealth. Most people won't speak and call their shot because they're afraid they won't get there. But you speak even if you don't know how to get there, and then you let people rally around you, you get resourceful, you figure it out, you just know that it might not be on the time frame that you're looking for. It's just, if you commit to it, it's going to happen. But most people are interested, not committed. And there's a big difference between the two. Like if I call my wife right now and tell her, hey, I'm heading up to the cabin, I just want to let you know that I'm 80% committed to our relationship, she's going to kick my ass. You know what I'm saying? Like you're either 100% or none. And that's what commitment is. You say, I'm committed to this. I'm going to speak into existence. I'm going to be resourceful and allow other people to support me and rally around that. Co-creation, elimination, delegation, collaboration.
That last part, that's in Money Unmasked, which as a reminder, Garrett's giving you the audiobooks for free, so you can grab that link. We'll also put it in when we send the recording out. Garrett, I want to open up to some questions.
Yeah.
Who has questions about money, about any of the strategies that Garrett has shared so far? Who wants to ask Garrett a question? I've got more questions if you don't, but I want to give you guys a chance. Don't be shy. Nikki, would you want to ask a question, Nikki? Nikki's an economist, Garrett.
She said she didn't start writing until she was retired, which means that, now you're not retired anymore. That's good.
Do you have a
I
question?
was only retired because I became disabled. And then I found, I can write from a chair or a bed or a sofa. I don't have to be on my feet. So, yeah, I like what you said about finding someone who will believe in my book. And I have someone that I need to really talk to over and over again until she says, oh, I know this person. Because
Nikki, tell Garrett that your book. Tell Garrett your book. What's the title? Give him the title.
It's called The Economy Always Gets Better, Navigating Turbulent Times and then Uncertain Times with Confidence.
Nice.
It's a lot about my stories teaching as an economist. It's a basic primer for adult learners on macro.
Nice. I wanted Garrett to hear your title. I thought he might like
I
it.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do this question from Renee Rubin Ross. What are good investments for publishing or launching a book?
What do you mean by good investments for publishing a book? Like, give me more clarity around that.
You can come off mute if you want, Renee.
Oh, sure. Great. Hello. Yeah, I know you talked about things not to spend money on, but so I just was kind of curious, what is worth spending money on?
Oh, amazing editor, definitely worth it. Good designers, absolutely worth it. The right marketing people, like getting on podcasts might be worth it versus radio. Direct response marketing, running ads. If you like, with what the Rockefellers do, there's times where we spend $1 on an ad to get a book in someone's hands, and we get $1 back, and we just keep that going, And then sometimes it drops down to 40% because they change the algorithm, and then we kind of adjust and stop. So I think that all of those kind of things are well worth it. Just, because if you have a book with a big idea, you have nuts and bolts to support that, you have, good entertaining stories, and you leave the reader with hope, you've got a real chance to have word of mouth. And so it's worth putting the effort into the book so that the reader feels that, so the reader experiences that. And, when I wrote Killing Sacred Cows, the first version, I didn't really appeal to multiple readers. I was just like, I didn't know what I was doing. And then when we got a co-publisher and they brought an editing team, that book exponentially increased. And then when we wrote it again, in 23, it exponentially increased again. That's worth it. Like anything that's going to create an amazing experience that gets the reader engaged and wanting to read and wanting to share, that's worth every dollar. It's just that I was spending money on marketing that doesn't matter. Like I don't know if you've ever bought a book because you saw a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, but I never have. So I don't know why I thought that was going to move the needle necessarily. Yeah.
Same with the billboard in Times Square. That's
Yeah,
a
a lot of that's like the ego of the author more than it is like helping the reader.
correct. That's correct. As a New Yorker, I can tell you we are not looking up. We don't know what the billboards are saying. We are trying to get the heck out of Times Square as fast as humanly possible and wondering how we got there in the first place because we don't like to go there. So, yeah, no one's looking. Let's see. Other questions. What do you got? What are you worried about? What do you want to solve? Vicky? You've had, no? You look like you were about to say something.
No, I'm first of all taking it all in. Garrett, you threw a zillion things our way, and I'm still trying to process. But no, I don't have any questions right now.
Tell Garrett your book, Vicky.
My book is High Agency Human, Navigate Adversity and Live Big. So it's all about preparedness for adverse events and then increasing agency for anyone that can't seem to or think that they can't catch a break but want to live big. I pretty much muddled that all together, AJ, but here we are.
You got there? You got there?
I got there in the end. So, and Sherry just put in a question about self-publishing or not. So I will go ahead and say that I have opted to self-publish in the new year and going that route.
So I have a philosophy that you self-publish but make it look published.
Mm-hmm.
Like the thing that will turn my stomach is when people go, oh, my book's my business card. I'm like, nobody wants a business card. Nobody wants a business card. What they want is a transformative experience or an engaging experience, or like I want people to put out really good work. That's why I refer them to AJ. And so I just see some books that don't look like a book. They look like a pamphlet. So self-publish, but have them not know the difference. We got a hardcover printing of What Would the Rockefellers do. I mean, we printed 20,000 copies, but it was only $2.20 per book. But it looks published. It's published by my publisher, Ripwater. Nobody knows the difference of that versus I have a book with Bard Press, and yeah, I like that in my self-published. I can charge what I want. I can give the book away if I want. I can run marketing to it. I want. I can make changes in the book. Nobody, it's like I just have so much more control over all that. And maybe that was different 20 years ago, but to me, like, when I went with the, Bard, it was an 18-month process. When I went with the co-publisher like Greenleaf, it was 9 months. When I do self-publish and I turn something around in 3 to 6 months because it's a rewrite, that's really nice. And I didn't have to ask for permission or, if they liked what it was or whatever their opinion is. It's like I could just use my own team. So I'm a big fan of self-published. My self-published books have outperformed my published books.
Amazing. Other questions for Garrett?
I mean, it's pretty cool. Like AJ taught me a bunch of stuff, like Find Away Voices. I did my audio recording and I put it on there, and it's 32 places with one click of a button. My feeling about books is like, I know that like I'm in a little bit different world than some authors because I have this business that can support all the information inside the book. So I don't really care if I make money directly from the book. I just want people to read the book because consumption equals conversion. If someone reads the book, they feel like they know me. They know whether they like me or they don't. They know whether this message resonates or it doesn't. So everything I do is I go, what can I do to get them to read the next page? And that's why on the back of my books, it'll say, hey, if you're in this situation, go to this chapter. And sometimes when people buy a book bundle, our team just reaches out to them. Hey, which book are you going to start with? What's going on in your financial life, and help them navigate just as a courtesy call. And then a lot of times that generates a relationship. So I just like this notion of someone's reading in their bedroom. Someone's reading on their vacation. It's like on video, they're interrupted 24/7. There's the notifications. I like that. Like I collect records. I have vinyl at my cabin and at my house. I look at books as that same bastion of like vinyl, that same situation of like, it's nostalgia. You're entering someone's home, you're on their bookshelf, and hopefully if they engage in the work, now you're in their mind, now you're in their life. And so it's a good investment. If it's worth it, it's work, but it's work worth doing. Like, work that sucks is real estate work for me. I was like, I didn't like anything about that. But even in the bad days of a book, because maybe I didn't set up the Kindle properly and it gets rejected because I just used Fiverr because I didn't know what the hell I was doing until I called AJ. It's like those days suck, but then it's really cool just to, it's kind of like heartwarming to read the reviews of a book. Like I'm always amazed. I mean, it's also comedic to read my 1-star reviews. I do enjoy those. Maybe I'm as a comedian or maybe I'm sadistic, but Like the reality is most people are just like so generous and so nice and talking about all these things, and then every now and again you get someone that says something negative. That ratio of reviews on a book versus anyone on the internet is like 10 to 1 positive versus the internet. So you also have that.
So Garrett, Dan has a question, and then I have a question after that. So Dan asked, self-publishing is great, but for good sales, you have to have a large audience and or invest a decent amount in marketing. Is that true?
Well, I mean, you could pre-sell, but yeah, like I sold 22,000 copies with 6,000 people in my audience. We've sold a lot of copies of what the Rockefellers do because we run ads. So it does require some level of effort. It does require some level of money. But you could get on, depending on who your relationships are. I got on a lot of podcasts just by people making recommendations. I got a lot of advanced reader copies inside of people's hands just to, and then they say, what can I do to help you? And you just got to be willing to ask for the favor. Most authors just won't ask for support. But people love to support things. They love to be part of something.
You know,
So,
there's a lot of really famous self-published books, Dan, and a lot of people who didn't start out with a big audience. You have to have some vision and you have to think about how am I going to go about this in a creative way. And you're amazed at what you can actually get done.
I mean, I don't know too many people. I mean, this is a harsh statement, but I don't know too many people are like, man, I'm so glad I published. They did everything they said they were going to do. I mean, Greenleaf was okay, but they didn't believe me. And so I remember going to Chicago right when the book came out, and I went to the Barnes and Noble, and I was like, "Hey, I thought Killing Sacred Cows." They're like, "Yeah, it sold out yesterday." It's like, well, how many copies did you have? They're like 5. I was like, well, that sucks. I've been pushing this hard because they didn't believe me. So I don't know how many people. Maybe we're the kind of people that all go to Barnes and Noble, but most people are just buying books online now.
Yeah. Another question, Mark is asking, how did you know when you had to do a rewrite? What was the ROI?
Killing Sacred Cows was at a point where I was like, once I knew how to be a better writer, once I knew how to make it more about the reader, I realized we made that book too long because the publisher's like, hey, we want a thicker spine for Barnes and Noble. So it had 50 pages that didn't belong. Like the Money is Power chapter wasn't powerful, ironically enough. It was pretty fluffy. And like when there people be critical of the book, they're like, it's redundant. And I was like, it is redundant. They were right. I didn't like take offense to it. I was like, this is just spot on. So once I knew how to write, I just rewrote it. And I knew that this investor DNA concept wasn't in the first version. It was critical to really bring everything together. So it was awesome to be able to, cut out tens of thousands of words, yet give more impact and result. What would the Rockefellers do was a little bit easier to know it was time because interest rates had drastically changed since I'd written that in 2016. And it was time for that to be updated. And I had learned a lot over that time about legacy and what worked and what didn't, that I could then add those elements to the book. And I was able to add all those elements without increasing the page numbers. I just was able to pull things out because when I did the audiobook, one of the strategies I now do is I won't release the book until I've read the audiobook, and then I do the final copy to whether it's self-published or the publisher, because when I read it out loud, I'm like, oh, that sounds so dumb. Like, what was I trying to say there? Or, oh, there's an error here. And just being able to read it out loud, that was super helpful. So I redid Killing Sacred Cows, and I redid what would the Rockefellers do after I did the audiobook. And when I did the audiobook, I hired this guy, Larry Moss, who's an acting coach. And he had helped the best of the best on audiobook. I never got close to these people because my biggest mistake on the audiobook is I started listening to like Will Smith and Viola Davis and Matthew McConaughey's books. And if you want to feel like you're a terrible reader, just listen to those and then do some reading. But what I decided was if I wasn't 100% present reading my audiobook, I just stopped. So I just had time, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. I set it up at my house. We had blankets and I had, a whole headset and a great audio recording. And I'd be like, oh, that wasn't good enough. And I would record sometimes, listen and be like, no, that's not the final take. And I think if you look at your book as like an extension of who you are and an extension of how much you care, then just take your time. I just think that there's too much stuff out there that's sloppy. And I think Killing Sacred Cows audiobook, the first version, is so bad because I booked 2 days for it. I had a co-author that did a lot of the writing that writes completely different than I speak. And I felt bad for the sound booth guy because I just kept, I probably the most this guy from Utah ever heard the F word in 2 days is over his whole life. He's just in that concentrated 2 days because I just kept tripping up and I was reading too fast. And so I was like, hey, this is something important. Like, why not just take your time with it? Why not just like find a way to fall in love with it? And if you're reading it and you're not present, then just be done. Just you're done for the day.
I want to ask you a couple other questions before we close and kind of brass tacks. So, to get these tax advantages, do you recommend that authors set up a business entity, or do they have to have one?
Yeah,
John,
if you
John has got opinions. John's over.
100% yes. It's a no-brainer. You
Yeah,
have to have an entity.
well, and John can, he can chime in if anything I say isn't 100% accurate here. When you're just filing on a Schedule C and meaning you're not incorporated, you have a 400% higher chance of being audited. So when you set up a corporation, you've just lowered your chance of being audited. Second, you don't have unlimited liability any longer. So you don't have unlimited liability. So setting up a corporation helps there. And depending on what type of business is coming in and how much you're making, like whether it's an LLC, an S corp, or a C corp, you could save tax by being incorporated versus not being incorporated. So that's there's plenty of reason to set up a business for sure.
And then you need to get a tax advisor to help you with all of those different tax codes that you were mentioning, and very, very, very fast.
Yeah, I mean, it might take a minute, but if you just put AJ's name in my just DM me at Garrett B. Gunderson on Instagram. Just put AJ in there, and I'll give you my tax navigator, so you just have the checklist.
I have a question. What
Yeah.
kind of is a self-employed, an S corp is a self-employed corporation?
Yeah,
Is that
so
what you're talking about?
so LLCs and S corps are pass-through entities. I'm not an attorney, so I'm just playing one on
Oh, okay.
right now. But S corp and an LLC are pass-through entities. LLCs, I feel are really good when you have a partner because you can shield yourself from liability. You can be really flexible on like who takes what or how much deduction. You can tax as a partnership, which could be advantageous. An S corp is good for like a cash cow business. You're the only owner of it, and you want to take some salary plus some distributions. Distributions can avoid self-employment tax. So maybe there's royalties and stuff like that coming through there. Where C corp is, where you can retain earnings, and it's, but you also pay potentially tax on the way out and the way in. But if you're going to build a substantial media empire, intellectual property empire, you can set up a C corp. If you ever sell it, it's and you own it for 5 years. There's a thing called Section 1202 where you can sell it for up to $10 million tax free. So yeah, the different corporations matter. LLC is the most popular. It's kind of the new kid on the block. Came out in the late 70s. A lot of people set stuff up in Wyoming and Nevada that way because it's super easy. But it just depends. Like if my consulting company is an S corp, my intellectual property company is an LLC, and my wife owns a certain percentage of it.
Nice.
Thanks.
Linda is real quick asked, what is the minimum income to make incorporating payoff with tax cuts? That might not be that. I don't know. Do you know, Garrett?
John, what would you say? At what point would you have someone incorporate?
0. Like it's better to have a loss on an LLC than it is to not. Like you're a business, and there's no rule that says you have to make money as a business owner. So if you're starting out and you have more expenses this year before the income comes in, it's totally fine. Take advantage of the tax code.
There you go.
There you go. We're so lucky we have both of you here. Garrett, one quick question before we close, and we're going to give you all access to everything. Also, by the way, Garrett has a program for people that want to do more work with him. Garrett, you'll send us some information that we can share, right?
Yeah, this is probably the best thing is this. I'll put FHA. So GarrettGunderson.com/FHA. You'll get a complimentary financial health assessment. It'll show you where you're set, where you're not set, where your blind spots are. It's really easy to go through and fill out. So that's probably the easiest thing. And then if there's more help that you need or stuff, then you can, we'll be able to talk with you and reach out to you from there.
Y'all, okay, first of all, Garrett, you just said complimentary assessment. Go on Instagram, type AJ and get my tax thing. Go to this thing and get all my audiobooks. I think you gave something else away. So I need to I hope you all understand why this is one of my dearest friends. Like Garrett Gunderson to me is all heart, just all heart. And I'm so grateful to you, Garrett. What is one step you want all these authors to take today?
I mean, I think that just get really clear about the vision of what you want to have happen with your book and speak it into existence. And then make sure you have your co-creators. And then as you build momentum, you start to delegate, and then you get the final collaboration team to make this world class. Even if you have to get some money from your 401k, even if you have to take money out of the bank, even if you have to, like, it's worth the investment. Just, you got to believe enough in yourself. And a lot of it is, it's easy to put money into other people's stuff, harder to put money into ourselves. But if you put money into yourself, I feel like it's going to pay the biggest dividends, because you're going to actually gain knowledge and learn from it and make a bigger impact. So think about, what would it take to have that impact? And if money is the obstacle, I've given you some resources and tools. So hopefully it could be more of an ally and asset versus an enemy. I know for a lot of people it's confusing, frustrating. And so I try to make it pretty easy and, a little bit more elegant with the design. And so a lot of the books that we gave for free, I think, will be helpful, that you can, listen on your leisure.
Garrett, I'm indebted to you. Thank you for coming. You rocked it. Everybody was, I'm going to be hearing about this for weeks in writing sprints, I'm sure. Everybody, go follow Garrett on all the things, okay?
All the things.
Thank you, Garrett.
For having me, AJ. Thanks, everybody. Good luck with your books. Hopefully this helps you get it out there. Let's spread the good word, get the good messages out there, help people out, and, enjoy your life by putting out good things.
Thanks, Garrett.